Hi, welcome to another episode of using the need stack to build a full stack application. So if you recall from our last episode, we have completed building the application, sort of. We can create new bot. Okay, this is a new bot created by fred@gmail.com. And then maybe we can add a few cards to do one. Okay, you can create new bot, right? And the data is saved in the index database on the browser. Of course, this is not transferable; it's tied to the browser. However, if we now try to click on this guy, which is what we did last week, we try to click on this guy. It's going to try to and also sorry, before I click, let's have a look at uh, the routes that we have defined. So we go to augury. Again, you can only see the router tree if you disable IV, and this is our router tree. Okay, so now if I click on this, I will actually get an error, and the error says that we are trying to navigate to update this particular ID, okay, or this particular ID, and it is actually crashing. The reason is because we don't have this root. In our application, the last time we defined roots when we generated this, we defined these roots, but there are no components uh, to actually serve to actually display these roots. So in this episode, we will create a component to generate this root, and I'll show you how to update uh, our our data using IndexedDB. Okay, so like as usual, I'm going to create another branch. Check out, and I'm going to say this is part 10. Just have a look at it. Right. Okay. So I will now up the application. Okay, I'm going to open this thing, and just to show you this part where it is crashing is here under here. Okay. So this part here, what we do is this: we click navigate to, and then we go bot ID. Bot ID is this is the bot ID. Okay, this is the bot ID, and it's trying to navigate to this. So what I will do uh, now is to generate a component called update, and we'll map the component to this root. So notice that this part is fixed. The update part is fixed, but the ID behind this is dynamic. Okay, so we have to generate a dynamic root. We'll go to our command line. I'm going to use ng generate component, and I'll be generating it inside here. So it will be bot components. I will be calling it update. Okay, I'm going to skip generating, skip the test, and create a flat directory structure. Okay, so I have to go into do that again. Right. So let's come back here, and then I will refresh this. So that's our component. And what I will do is I will now add the component, map the component to the root. Come here. I will now say path. This will be update. So notice that the update, oops. So let me just click this. So notice that the update, this part here, this is dynamic portion. So the way you generate the way you say how that this part of the root is dynamic is to put a colon and then specify like a variable. So if you're done express, this is exactly like the root root router path. Okay. So component, and then I'm going to map this to update component. So let's have a look. Let's go back to augury and have a look at augury. So if I go fresh now, now there's a third one. So this is the component and is mapped to the dynamic component, right? Okay. So if I now click on this, notice that there are no more error. Okay. Notice that there are no more error. So if I click on this, notice that there are no more error. What I can do now is this: I can go to the component and pick up the dynamic part of the application. The idea is that I will pick up the bot ID, and using the bot ID, I will go to the database to extract the information to extract the field, the bot details from the database. So let's go to update. Oops. Okay, so I'll go to update component. Okay. What I will do is this: I will extend this. I will extend this from our base component. Okay. So if you recall, our base component requires the router and the activated route. So I will go router. Okay. So okay. And activated route. Right. So let me just go to 3. Put all the system Angulars input together, and then now I can just go super router activated route. So this is from the base component, right? So let's have a look at the base component just to refresh our mind. So that's from the base component. In the base component house all the common features, functionalities required by all our modules here, like navigation. Now to get this part of the ID. So to get this part of the ID, okay, what you do is this: you use the activated route. Let me define. Okay, so let me just format this a little bit first. Okay. So I'm going to define a member here called bot ID, which is of type string. And to get the bot ID, this is what you do. You go this. So let me just do a quick display and show you first. So you can go console info, and then what we will say, I'll just say BID. Okay, the way to get it is to go activated route, snapshot, params, and then we pass in the name of the parameter, which is BID. BID is this guy here. Okay, it's this guy here. This guy here. Okay. So let's go back to here, right? So let's have a look at this. So now if we go back to here, go back to the main menu where we list all the bot, and if you click on this, you'll notice that we have access to BID. Okay, like that. Okay. So since this functionality, this feature is going to be quite common across all our components, what I'll do is this: I will add this to the base component. Okay. So I'll just say get root param. You take a name, and then you return a string. So return this activated route snapshot params, and then we'll just pass in the name here. Okay. So now this one we'll just say this bot ID equals to this get root param, and we'll pass in the bot ID. Like so. Okay. So we can access it here, or we can access this at ng on init. Okay. So once we have the ID, we can now use the ID to retrieve the details from the IndexedDB database, from this IndexedDB database. Okay. So if you remember, we use all the database access logic is is in the kbot service. So we will use the kbot service. We'll write this in the kbot service. Okay. Oops. So I will say find bot by ID, which takes a bot ID, which is of type string. And what you do is this will return a promise of bot. The search is very simple. Since we are searching by primary key, the bot ID is a primary key. You just go like this. This bots, which is the collection, the table, and then we will say find. Get. We pass in the bot ID. Okay, right. So now, what we will do is this. I'm going to define a bot here, which is of type kbot. Okay, and this is what I do. So we need to inject in the service. Okay, I'll say private kbot service. So now we will go here. We will now just say this kbot service find bot by ID, and then you say this bot ID. Then we can say then the result we will assign it to this bot result. Okay. If there is any error, we'll just dump out the error. Info error find bot by ID, and then we just say error. Like so. Okay. Right. So maybe we'll just print out the result here and have a look at the result. Okay. Right. Let's have a look at that. So we go to console. We should now see our bot being loaded. Okay. Let's try another one. Let's try this guy. Okay. So this is a different bot, and this is coming from the database. Okay. So now we need to pass this information, the bot that we have, to our component. This is what I'll do. So let me mock up this update page first. Okay. So I will come here. I'm going to just go very simply column, and then I'll just say h2 update bot, and then I will just say I'm going to display the bot ID here. Okay. Okay. So I will display the bot ID. So let's make the bot ID code. Right. Oops. Oh. So wrong. Control F. Oops. Getting worse. Control P. So we substitute the code. Okay. Right. Okay. So this is what we want. I actually also need the so I also need a bracket. So I'm going to go fine. Okay. Right. Okay. So now I will just display the kbot here. So we now have the bot. I have this information. I now want to pass this information into the bot so that it's displayed, and then I can perform update. And then when I click on the create, we are going to take the updates, and then we're going to update it back to the IndexedDB database. So how do we pass information from our update component into the kbot component? So if you recall, the last time, what I mentioned was that the component itself is opaque. The parent component has no visibility into the component. And previously we have seen that when we click on the create button, the value inside the component is passed to the parent two ways, either via an event or by defining an API accessor method in the keyboard component, and the parent component use a template reference to reference the component, an instance of the component, and then retrieve it using the API, right? So that's one way. And the general way of getting data out from a component is not general, but the usual way is to use the event handler by annotating the method with output. So let's have a look at this. Okay, by annotating it with output, right? So when we click on the submit button, process form button, right, we get the value and we call on submit, which fires. So on submit is the name of the event, which fires the value. Okay, so in a similar setting, similar way, and the way to do that is to perform event binding, right? So we bind the name of the event to an event handler. Similarly, to pass data into the component, we use attribute binding, right? And we're going to use a square bracket. So this is the name of our this is the value of our bot. We will use the attribute binding to bind it to an attribute of the component, in this case value, and then that value will be passed into the component. This is what we do. Okay. Notice that if you recall that we already have a method called get. So value, which is a getter, to return the value from a component. We will now use the setter, the corresponding pair called set value, and since this is returning a partial keyboard, the set must accept a partial keyboard. So I'm going to call this value partial keyboard. Okay, like that. I'm just going to print out the console of the value first so that we can have a look at it. So value equals to b, right? To make this into into an attribute of the component, we need to annotate the getter and setter with the input annotation. So what we do is this: we import the input annotation from Angular core, and then if you are using a TypeScript getter and setter, the annotation must be annotated. The input annotation must be annotated on the get, like that. You can also, if you got other values, for example, you can also annotate it directly on, for example, like a string, like that. Okay, so you can annotate it on a member, just a plain member, or a getter and setter. Okay, so we annotate it like this. So now to use it, all we need to do is just come back to this keyboard, and then we say, value being the name of the getter and setter, equals to bot. Okay, so the bot is this value, and the value attribute is this guy, right? So we are saying bind this value to this attribute. Okay, so if we now go back to our application, we will now notice that this is the bot, this is from update bot, and this is the value. So we have updated the value. Let's have a look. Let's click on another. Let's clear the screen. Let's click on another one. Okay. Notice this is my bot, and this is from the setter inside the keyboard component, the V. Okay. Notice there's the first V is undefined. The reason why it's undefined is because if you remember, the data is retrieved from the IndexedDB database asynchronously, right? We call the find by ID. Find by ID returns a promise, which when resolved gives us the result. Okay, so initially when the uh, when the when this view is loaded, kboard is undefined, is null. That accounts for this undefined. So after that, the value is resolved. Then Angular binds the value, takes the value and binds it with the v. So the v now gets the value. So we will now go back to the kboard component, okay? And we will now take this value and we will put it, we will populate it into the component, into the form. Okay? So the way I'm going to do this is this. If you recall, I've got a method called initialize form. So I will define a parameter in initialize form, which takes a partial kboard and it will just populate the fields. So so here, this board here, this method here. So I will say board, which is a partial kboard. Okay, I'm going to set it to null so that which so that it has an initial so that if you don't pass it any value, you just take null and it will work with all the existing my current setup. I will now take the board and I'll pass it to create board, and again create board. I will do the same thing. Okay, so now I will do this. I will say if B is not null, then I will take the title. Otherwise, return an empty string so that it will continue to work with existing with a new board. So B, I will say if B is not null, I'll take the created by. Otherwise, the empty string, and similar for here. Okay. For create cards, what I'll do is this. I will also do the same thing. If B is not null, pass in the cards. Otherwise, pass in an empty array. So this thing. So since I've defined a since I say the create cards takes one parameter, I need to define a parameter here. I'll say C, which is of type card. Create card, okay, right? And if you don't pass in, you just take an empty array. So now I need to create a single form group card. I'll do this. I'll say C map the value this create card, and I'll pass in. I'll take a single card and pass into this. So this guy here is a card. It's a null value. And same, I'll just say C description. Okay, if it's not fill in, if C is not null, then I will take the description. Otherwise, I will display an empty string. And for this priority, I'll do the same thing. Priority, and since I'm setting it to the form, it needs to be a string. So I'll convert this to a string. So okay. So now all that remains is to come back to my setter and say this initialize form, and I'll pass in the B. Right? So now notice the board is displayed with value. So let's go back to here. Let's look at this board, things to do this weekend. So that's been populated. Okay. So if we modify this, and then now we click on create. Okay, what we want to do is this. We want these values to be passed back to the update component, right? So we have modified this. We want to update. We want this value to be passed back to the update component. The update component will take this form and then update the database. So that's very simple because we already have a method to do that, which is the on submit button. Okay, so this on submit button. So this is what we'll do. I'm going to come to the update component. Here, I'll just say on submit, right? And then I'll create a handler, event handler called update, and it will take the event object. The event object, if you remember, is the partial keyboard. So I'll go back to the update component here, and I will create the update. Let me just see what is the name of my component. Update. Okay, so it's update, and then this is the board. So it's a partial keyboard. Okay, like that, right? So I'm just going to print it out, just to have a look. Okay, so let's come back to here again. So that's the value. Now if I just change this and I just say 1, 2, 3, I'll go create. Notice that I've got back the value in update. Okay, right. So now I have the value. What I need to do is this. I will need to update this value to the database. Okay, so this is a partial bot, and when I update back to the database, this is a full bot, not a partial bot. Okay, so remember this this component, the keyboard component, only has these fields, but an actual bot. Let's go to the model. Let's go to our model. The actual bot has got things like bot ID created on, which is not shown here, right? So what I'm going to do is this: we are going to merge the partial bot with the old bot, and then we'll take the new, the updated bot and update to database. To do that, what I'll do is let me add another field here called updated on, and this is let me make this as an optional field, so that I will add a timestamp whenever I perform update. I'm going to create a utility method called merge, which will merge a partial and a keyboard object. So let me call this utils. Okay, export cons merge bot. Okay, which takes a partial bot. Let me just import that first. Okay, which takes that, and then you'll take a full bot. Okay, and then you return bot, like so. Okay, so let me define the bot first. Okay, and then I'll return bot. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is this. I will say bot ID. I'll take the bot ID from the old bot, created on. I won't change the creation date. Okay, then I'll take title. Now the title I'll take from the new bot, which is the partial bot. Remember, I cannot do I cannot use a spread operator because this is a partial object. And then created by, and then comments. Okay, and then cuts. Okay, so I'll merge the two. Right. So what I will do here is this. Let me import that first. So let me import utils. Merge bot. Okay. So now what I'll do is this. I'll go cons updated bot is equals to merge bot. I'll take the partial bot. Let me call this, instead of calling this bot, I'll call this partial bot. I'll call this P. Name class. I'll call this bot. So I'll take the partial bot, and then I'll take the old bot, and I'll get the new bot. Okay, so I'm going to delete this guy like that. So now I need to perform an update. I'll go back to my database, my database service, keyboard service, and I'll define add a new method here. Let's call this update bot, which will take a bot, and then you return a promise. So this is like if you work with Mongo, when Mongo perform an inserts, it'll tell you how many modify, how many inserts it has performed. IndexedDB is like that. It will return to you a number telling you how many updates it has performed. So this is again fairly simple. Bots. This is update. The update takes two parameters. You take a key. So we have the key from the bot ID, and then you just take the bot. Okay, and then you return a promise with a number. Like that. So what we do here is this. So once we've got the bot, I'll say this bot service update. I'll take the bot. Okay, we can look at the result if we want to. So this result is how the number of records that have been updated. So it should always be 1. So it should be 1. Okay. Okay. Also, let's also say, catch any error. Okay. Console error. Then we say error update bot, and then we just display the error. Okay. So once we are done, we want to navigate back to the page where we display all our bot. So we say finally. Okay. And then we'll do this. We'll say this navigate to. Okay. You're going to go up 2 levels. So from here, go up 2 levels, go back up to the keyboard level. Like, oops, finally. Oh, I just remember something. Hang on, let me do this first. I think there's an error. Okay, so I forgot to use my update field here. So what I'll do is this. I'll go bot updated on. Okay, equals to new date get time. Right. I also noticed that there is actually an error in my previous episode created on. I used get date, which is actually incorrect. This is just the date. What I mean to say is get time. We should take a timestamp. Okay, so notice here the error is here. So it's created on notice these dates here. Okay, so this is incorrect. So I'm going to change it to time. Okay, so I'll say bot. I'll add the update that on, and then I'll perform the update. So let's go back and try again. Okay, so let's add this one, the coming week. Let's add a new card. Okay, let's say to do 1, right? And then we can go. Let's go to console. So we can go create. Okay, updated record 1, and now the coming week we got 1. Right? So we can say things to do this weekend. We can say, updated. Let's add another one. Okay, so high priority, right? So that's updated. So if we now go to our database, we can see that it has really been updated. Number of cards, not this, maybe this. Okay, so this one, like number of cards, we got 3. Get a kick. Okay, so one thing I would like you to take note is this. So if we click on create, right, notice that this button is a create button, so that is all cool. But if you want to perform an update on a bot and I click on this guy, notice that this is still create. Okay, I may also want to have features buttons in here that says delete. I may want to not update a button but say delete, right? So if it's update, I may want to change this button to say save or update, or I may want to have an additional button here that says cancel that allows me to leave this page without updating anything, or to actually have a button here that says delete. Okay, so in our next episode, what I will show you is how we can customize this component, right? By adding additional button here, allow the user of this component to add additional buttons here. Okay. Till then, I'll see you then. So remember, if you want to check out the code for this, the branch is part 10. Okay, so I'll see you in the next episode. Till then, stay safe.